Good afternoon. Yes, perfect. So my name is Rene Neumann, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about isolated management infrastructure. It actually fits reasonably well into the previous talk, because literally what we're talking about is out-of-band management and what does it really mean today. So very briefly, we're just going to a high-level overview of the current security trends, where they are, and what does it really mean, primarily for enterprises, but it has impact as well to the community here as well. And then that's pretty much it. So I'm not going to bother you too long today and keep you from lunch. So at a high level, security trends which we see in 2024 are the most obvious ones. We have ransomware still rampant. You have a whole swath of different software vulnerabilities which are coming across. A lot of management interfaces are having an awful lot of high vulnerabilities, CVE 10s and 9.8s and everything else. Like last week, we just had the SSH challenge which came up. And all of that is really leading to an entire change in the compliance and supply chain and how we look at the IT security stack overall. One other sector which is really driving it for the business side is the insurance levels or the insurance market. Essentially what is happening there is that insurances or enterprises up until right now, they were able to insure their way out of cybersecurity risks. You could just buy a cybersecurity insurance and be done with it. And all of that is changing. Essentially, those insurances go up, and enterprises find it harder and harder to finance those insurances. And all of that is really leading to reviewing how we look at resilience. And that is really focused or reflected in some of the regulations and compliances which we see across the world. There's an awful lot of happening over in the US currently, specifically with CISA and the NSA, but really the leading area is here Europe, specifically with NIS2, DORA, and CERT. NIS2, I'm not sure, is anybody familiar with NIS2, with the NIS2 framework? Some are. So then very high level. So NIS2 is a European framework which looks from a European Union at critical infrastructure and how critical infrastructure needs to be more resilient. So it's a completely different way of looking how we are providing the resilience to critical infrastructure, including cyber resilience. And that is really broken down into DORA, which has a main focus on the financial sector, and on CERT, which is primarily around critical infrastructure like transportation, oil and gas, and telco as well. All of those those compliances become active later this year, really. DORA is already active. NIS2 needs to be translated into local requirements by October this year. It doesn't really have a direct impact on the UK because you decided not to follow European, pretty much everybody else in Europe. But there's still, in the UK, you still have the original NIS framework, which still applies, and the UK has already agreed to, at least to some extent, implement some of the NIS2 compliances as well. And for everybody who has any dealings with the European bloc, still needs to implement specifically DORA and CERT regulations as well. So all of those apply to everybody in the UK as well. And really what is a change? Well, what they're saying is, I found that in one of the white papers for the White House. It's essentially the saying is, up until right now, we built nice big walls. We tried to make them as strong as possible. That was our defense perimeter, and nobody got through. That is our traditional point of view. And really, we're flipping that around and say, look, we know that there are holes there. People will get in. Do something about that situation. deal with those incidences, and then recover from there. Okay? And that really is leading to a framework of an isolated management infrastructure. Now, that isolated management infrastructure isn't anything which we came up with. It's really based on multiple of those frameworks, and you will find all those details really in the frameworks. I just put it up together as a single slide. So really what isolated management infrastructure means is you need to be able to recover from outages. It should be secure by design. I mean, my predecessor just really highlighted that quite nicely before. You want to adapt and transform to current circumstances, depending how they are evolving over the next couple of months and years. And overall, whatever you do, it should be repeatable. You want to be able to roll it out. You need to maintain it. So what does that mean in practical terms? Essentially, just here a completely outside example, you can use essentially an airport as an example what an isolated management infrastructure is. Your runway is a production network. That is what you deal with. That is what delivers the value to your customers or to your organization. But an airport has dedicated runways, has a dedicated fire department, medical department, has a control tower, which all provides auxiliary services, and they are completely separated from your main runway. And that is essentially what an isolated management is. We would have called it 20 years ago, we would have just called it out of band. It goes a little bit further than just pure out of band via a serial console port, but it's still in the same realm. Okay? So it's not really anything breaking new. So really where are we coming from? Originally, generation 1 out of band was direct access. You would go with your laptop, plug it in, you would go there, or you would directly build an RDP session as a SAGE session to your end device. Be done. Right? Generation 2, you implemented some form of infrastructure in front of it. Could be a completely out of band solution from one of the main vendors, or you build something yourself. Really is relatively straightforward, but typically it's about a shared infrastructure. So it would be management VLAN, let's say. You have your corporate firewall, and you would VPN through the corporate firewall to a management plane. What we are talking about with the isolated management infrastructure is really providing a complete isolated physical infrastructure. Okay? So that means it implements security directly by design. It's a complete platform approach because you don't want to have an individual vendor providing you just with all the tooling because everybody is slightly different. You have your own tools. It needs to fit into your own operational processes. And it needs to be adaptable, plain and simple. So high level, generation 1, I already showed those one. That is just a graphic of it. So you would just go as a remote admin directly to your next-gen firewall, and then you would manage your network there directly using the normal network. I don't think anybody's really using that today. At least I don't know many customers who still use direct connectivity. What is interesting from an American perspective is that process or that management design is completely banned by CISA. They did, so from a US government perspective, that is completely gone. The generation 2, that is when I said you have already some form of tooling implemented, some form of an out-of-band solution. That is still accepted by CISA. It's not recommended anymore, but essentially you as an admin, you would use a VPN connection or something like it, VPN to your out-of-band platform, whatever that might be, and then from there you jump onto your management network. Okay, that could be jump host or something similar. The biggest issue still is you have no real separation there. And that can lead to issues down the path, right? So the isolated management infrastructure provides a fully isolated physical infrastructure. So you as an admin, you would VPN in to a dedicated system which has its own security controls, its own tooling, its own services, jump box, and everything else. And from there, then you would connect to your management interfaces. Now, management interfaces, very high level, because I know that can catch, or at least it's catching a lot of enterprises out, is don't just think here about your routers, switches, firewalls, or your servers, or the normal day-to-day stuff. Think about all the stuff which is normally in your data center, nobody's really thinking about it. Rack PDUs, sensors. Those are all devices which are connected to your network in many situations. Nobody's looking at them. They typically are out of date and have a huge amount of vulnerabilities. So you definitely want to get them off your production network anyway. So isolate them, have them on a separate network. Okay? Now, that is what is strongly recommended. The issue here is, if you really want to implement it, you need something roundabout like this to implement it. So you need to cover hardware, you need a little bit compute, a little bit networking, a little bit routing, firewalls, you need your different connectivity options, your network services, and then all your tooling on top of it. And I don't think anybody here is in this room who isn't using any form of automation. Then you want your APIs on top of it, your automation tooling, etc. So there's an awful lot to implement purely for a dedicated management network. It is quite a lot to do, and you don't really want to increase operational burdens too much either. So really what you're looking for is a solution which can somehow help you on that journey, be it on the hardware side, be it on the software side, be it on the tooling side. So ideally, you find an out-of-band solution or an isolated management solution from a vendor which can provide you with the connectivity, which can provide you with the jump box capabilities, plus a way of running the specific tooling you have in your organization today. Okay? And then from there, that provides it can provide the security and isolation to your production infrastructure so that you can fully manage your infrastructure. And why is that really what you want? That design offers two big use cases. One is zero-touch provisioning. So if you have a brand new site, it's easy to bring it up. But far more important, if there is a security incident, let's say a ransomware attack, it allows you as well to easily rebuild your environment. You can completely wipe it and just bring it back up. And that's pretty much it. So as a quick summary, isolated management is all around resilience, providing that resilience to your infrastructure, to allow you to provide faster recovery and vulnerability patching literally to your infrastructure, and essentially to lower your IT costs and make your life easier. Okay? And that's it. Any questions? No? Then I guess it's time for lunch.